making sure that my heart doesn't have any unforgiveness, bitterness, resentment, just forgiveness and hope for the future and peace. You can't put a price on peace.
A young woman committed to helping spread the Christian gospel takes her own life in a park far from loved ones. This was a loss that sent shockwaves throughout the community, and it turned a critical eye on her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller. And now, with a new Netflix documentary dominating the streaming charts, we are examining these shocking allegations from family and friends right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. The death of Mica Miller, a young pastor's wife, is back in the national spotlight, and that is thanks to a brand new Netflix documentary called Death of the Pastor's Wife. This quickly shot to #1 on the streaming platform. This is a 3-episode series that examines how she met her husband, John Paul Miller, JP Miller, what she apparently revealed to friends and confidants, and what allegedly happened in the days leading up to her apparent decision to take her own life. We have been following this case very closely here on Sidebar since this happened in 2024, as her family has voiced concerns about whether Mica's death was truly self-inflicted, about the suspicious circumstances surrounding her tragic situation. Although, to be clear, and we will get into this, no one has been criminally charged in connection with Mica's death, and the official findings are that she did do this to herself. But today, I want to take a look at the new revelations, or the shocking revelations from this documentary, as well as the details that maybe have been left out, okay? But first, I got to give you background. Oh, and I have to also tell you something, too. This has been a very big case for us here on Sidebar. We've been covering a lot of big cases, too. And what we've done is something different. Since we can't show you every line from every document or every piece of footage, we have the case file section on the Law&Crime Plus app, okay? This is where we open up the evidence vault so you can inspect the raw body cam footage, the 911 calls, the crime scene photos, the full trial tapes, all firsthand. Plus, you get ad-free streaming of all your favorite law and crime and court TV shows. You can see the full picture for an entire month free, by the way. Head on over to lawandcrimeplus.com, enter promo code SIDEBAR, and you can start exploring all that today. Okay, background. April 2024. 30-year-old Mica Miller calls 911 from Lumber River State Park in North Carolina. This is across the state line from her home in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. She tells the dispatcher that she plans to end her own life and wanted first responders to be able to find her body to alert her family.
Robeson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
You don't know where you're at?
A national park.
Tell me what's happened.
I'm about to myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Now, Mica's body was found by a kayaker. It was determined she had a gunshot wound to the head. So that was on a Saturday. And despite receiving such horrific news, her husband, okay, JP Miller, decided he still wanted to preach on Sunday. And according to a video of the service that was played in the documentary, he seemingly acted totally normal throughout until he decided to announce at the very end that his wife, Mica Miller, a beloved member of the Solid Rock Church, was dead.
I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And it was self-induced. And it was up in North Carolina. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her.
So, as you can imagine, the congregation and community were left stunned. And now the question became, what had been going on? What had been going on in Mica's life that she would think her only way out was self-harm? It's the question at the center of this docuseries. So I want to dive into what we learned from the documentary, okay? Mica Miller and her 5 siblings moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina with her mom and stepdad when she was in her teens. They started attending the Solid Rock Church, and that is where she met John Paul Miller, also known as JP, a man twice her age who served as a pastor. Mica's sisters told the documentary crew that out of all of them, it was Mica who seemed the most connected to her faith, that she knew from a young age that she wanted to be involved in the ministry, that she loved to sing, that she was chosen to be Solid Rock's worship leader at just 16 years of age. And at the time, Mica was dating another member of the church, Jeremy. The two got engaged when she was 18. John Paul officiated the wedding ceremony himself at Solid Rock. And around the same time, Mica was apparently brought on as JP's assistant at the church. She even started nannying for his family. JP was married to a woman named Allison. They had multiple children together. And according to friends and family, Jeremy, Mica, JP, and Allison would spend a lot of time together. They even went on double dates. But not long after, a life-changing secret came to light. John Paul and Mica had apparently been having an affair. And so they both chose to divorce their partners. Mica, JP officially started dating. Family members said in the documentary that JP's alleged obsession with sex started to come out right when JP proposed. They claim that Mica had never discussed having a breast augmentation before, but suddenly decided to have surgery. According to what JP allegedly told her family, she had a bad reaction to the anesthesia, had some kind of mental break, so she was institutionalized, diagnosed with bipolar disorder. That's all from the documentary. Now, Mica's family claims that JP used that diagnosis, as well as religious doctrine, to allegedly exert even more control over his new wife, who he apparently married just days after she was released from the hospital. And the documentary showed portions of sermons that JP had apparently given to the Solid Rock congregation over the years. And you can arguably spot kind of a theme in his preachings, that a wife should always submit to her husband, no matter what, to be considered a good and godly spouse. And the documentary also included these entries from some of Mica's own journals where she chronicled her struggles with John Paul, what she apparently considered to be her own moral failings. So, for example, Mica made note of several Bible quotes from the book of Ephesians. Ephesians 5:22, submit the authority of husband. Ephesians 5:33, the wife should always honor and respect her husband. Ephesians 5:31, leave family, cling to spouse. Submission to spouse reflects your love for God. And according to Mica's friends, she revealed that she and JP would have sex 4 or 5 times a day. That if she resisted or turned JP down, he would allegedly go out of his way to essentially terrorize her, doing things like not allowing her to sleep, sending barrages of text messages. And the documentary also revealed allegations that JP forced Mica to take testosterone injections in an effort to help her keep up with his sex drive. The testosterone apparently changed her voice, made it difficult for Mica to lead worship like she had in the past. Again, that's according to those who knew her. JP's sermons at Solid Rock, featured in the docuseries, often revolved around kind of this sin of lust. I mean, according to JP's preachings, if a wife didn't submit sexually to her husband, then it was basically guaranteed that he was going to go looking for sex outside of his marriage. I'll read you a quote here from one of his sermons. Quote, ladies, wives, if you don't meet your husband's sexual needs, Satan will put 20 different options before his eyes before the day's over with. And it turned out JP himself was apparently straying, because according to the docuseries, it was revealed that he was allegedly having an affair with another married woman in the congregation, Susie Skinner, although there seems to be kind of a pushback on whether this was happening after Mica died or not, but there was an allegation that he was having an affair with her. When Mica apparently discovered what was going on, she vowed to divorce him and moved in with an older woman from the church who she trusted. During that time, JP allegedly talked about his wife and her mental health struggles during his sermons. At one point during a sermon played in the documentary, he apparently asked the congregation to pray that Mica would hit rock bottom so she could finally start to heal. Now, meantime, Mica was reportedly working to get a restraining order against her husband, and a handwritten affidavit seemingly exposes some of these horrific allegations, these things that Mica reportedly was going through. So in addition to the alleged injections of testosterone, Mica also claimed that JP had shown nude photos of her to members of the church, that he had paid homeless people to join them for threesomes and perform sex acts on Mica. That was a stunning allegation. In her journal, Mica reportedly wrote, quote, I was 13 years old when I met John Paul Miller as my pastor. Since the day we became husband and wife, I have been abused in every way I can think of, emotionally, sexually, spiritually, financially, and physically. And Mica often posted photos and videos to social media and posted this update during this, what appeared to be tumultuous time between her and JP, her leaving JP, and when she died. Look at this message.
Hey everybody, I just want to let you know that I'm alive and well, and life's been kind of crazy the couple past weeks, months, years, but I've kind of had to keep my circle really small for the past couple weeks, just because I'm going through a lot and it's hard and it's my cross to bear. It's the thing that God has put in my life to deal with, and I don't want to bring a lot of people into it.
Now again, I have to say it is important to note, John Paul Miller has never been criminally charged or even officially accused in connection with Mica's death. This was officially ruled a suicide by the medical examiner. John Paul was reportedly miles away in Charleston when Mica died. By the way, this conclusion that Mica intentionally took her own life, this comes from a May 7th, 2024 statement from local authorities, the local sheriff's department. It says, quote, based on surveillance footage, interviews, physical evidence, and the examination of the North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office. However, despite that, supporters calling for justice for Mica claim that JP's treatment of Mica practically guaranteed this heartbreaking ending, that he was responsible. Now, here's the thing. JP has not been criminally charged in connection with Mica's death. However, he is currently facing federal charges, something the docuseries mentioned at the very end, and I want to get into that. So one of the big revelations in the documentary was that when the FBI obtained a search warrant for JP's home, they used Mica's biblical counselor, this woman she had reportedly confided in, to lure him away from the house. According to the documentary, JP had allegedly reached out to her before trying to get his hands on notes that she had taken during her sessions with Mica, and the counselor had refused, but now she claims she had some info she could give to him, and when he left home, that's when the FBI swooped in, collecting computers and electronic devices. And in December of 2025, John Paul Miller was indicted on 2 charges, cyberstalking and making a false statement to police. And in the indictment, we believe that Mica is referred to as victim 1. Count 1, cyberstalking. Here's what the filing says. The grand jury charges that beginning on or around November 16, 2022, and continuing through on or about April 27, 2024, in the District of South Carolina and elsewhere, the defendant, John Paul Miller, with the intent to kill, injure, harass, intimidate, or place under surveillance with the intent to kill, injure, harass, intimidate victim 1, used interactive computer services to engage in a course of conduct that placed victim 1 in reasonable fear of death or serious bodily injury and attempted to cause, and the course of conduct would be reasonably expected to cause victim 1 substantial emotional distress, to wit, John Paul Miller sent or caused to be sent unwanted and harassing electronic communications to victim 1, used or threatened to use nude videos and photographs of victim 1 to harass victim 1, posted a nude photograph of victim 1 online without victim 1's consent, placed or caused to be placed tracking devices on vehicles used by victim 1, placed victim 1 or caused victim 1 to be placed under surveillance with the intent to harass and intimidate victim 1, damaged victim 1's vehicle, interfered with victim 1's finances and banking, and interfered with victim 1's daily activities. Then you got count 2, making a false statement to law enforcement. Quote, the grand jury further charges he falsely claimed victim 1 had been calling him more than he called victim 1 on March 11, 2024, when in fact the defendant, John Paul Miller, called victim 1 at least 50 times more than she called him. He falsely claimed police had never told him to stop contacting victim 1, when in fact the defendant, John Paul Miller, was told on March 11, 2024 by a police officer with Horry County Police Department to stop contacting victim 1. He falsely claimed he did not damage victim 1's tires or cause to be damaged, when in fact the defendant, John Paul Miller, used or caused to be used a tire deflation device in victim 1's tires. So, after the indictment, John Paul Miller wasn't arrested. He was issued a summons to report to the courthouse. And since that time, his court appearances have been pushed back again and again and again, with the latest update being this pretrial conference scheduled for October, although, look, could potentially be continued as well. We'll keep a careful eye on that. But now I want to talk about this. So to talk more about what Mica was going through at the end of her life, as well as the reaction to this new documentary, I want to bring back on Regina Ward, who had represented Mica for a period of time, particularly with her situation with John Paul. Good to see you, Regina. Thank you so much for taking the time. So you were featured in this documentary. What was that like? What has the reaction been like to this new series? Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so I was obviously just honored to even have been asked to do that. But I think that it was important because obviously I was her, I'm a divorce attorney, and that's what she retained me for. So I had the evidence that she left with the world. So it was a great honor to be able to speak on Mica's behalf and to share that information. And it was just something that we had to sit on for a long time because it was in the makings and trying, to keep that quiet. But it really was something special. It was extremely emotional as well. And so far the feedback, I've had people, sending me different things saying that I did a great job. They were very happy about how I handled John Paul Miller on the phone call. So that seemed to be a big hit with everybody.
Can you expand upon that? What you mean by the phone calls?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Monday, after Mica had passed on that Monday, he started calling my office before we even opened and left messages on my voicemail. So my receptionist picked those up and she said he's left some messages, and I'm like, just put him in the system. I'm not going to return his call. Well, in true John Paul Miller fashion, he was incessant, continued to call and call and call. It was driving, my staff crazy. And so every time he would call, I would say, nope, not now. And so then got to a place where they're like, are you ever going to what do you want to tell the guy? And I said, well, when he calls next time, I'll take the call. And then the other thing was he was asking if he could have a refund of whatever trust account money that she may have had, which was just absolutely, just showed where his priorities were. And then he blurted out, that he felt that I, was not, I guess, talking to him in a fashion he thought that I should be talking to him. He got the very clear message that I didn't buy his narrative, wasn't going to buy his narrative. And he said something to the effect, Mica and I had a wonderful marriage. And I said, that's a lie. That's just a lie. And so when you're dealing with somebody like that, that's trying to spin a narrative, which I was never going to buy. And in fact, he had actually called my office before Mica trying to retain my services. And I didn't take his case and didn't even meet with him. And in fact, didn't even know that he had called in until later on some things happened and said, he tried to call in here. It's like, no. So anyway, I feel like that he knows my stance against coercive control, abuse, and abuse in general. And in that phone call, him calling constantly, it was really, the undertone was really that he wanted to get to me to see if he can manipulate me into believing his narrative. So I just shut him down right away and just let him know that just wasn't going to happen. Did you learn anything about him, about Mica, about this story from the documentary that maybe you didn't know before? That's a really good question, and I don't think so. There may have been a little bit more detail on maybe some of the farther back history of Mica, but most everything there, I don't recall seeing anything. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I thought, for a lot of viewers who are not familiar with the story, one of the things that's come out, and I just was hoping you could expand upon a little bit more, and it's making the headlines, is this allegation from Mica's siblings, and it was made in this documentary, that John Paul Miller had involuntarily hospitalized her on at least one occasion. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that allegation? Yeah, absolutely. The allegation is true, and he did it more than once. I can't remember the exact number of times, and I think that the documentary kind of showed a little bit of that, but he did that more than once. And it's a classic coercive control tactic, is to weaponize the legal system against the victim and to weaponize medical care against the victim too. So anytime that she was trying to, it looked like she was getting strong enough to walk away from him, then that's when he would want to turn around and slap her in the hospital, just so he could let her know that he's got control of her, and that, you know, and that he can do that. And he did it more than once.
And by the way, our understanding is you turned over piles of information, documentation to the FBI when they were investigating J.P. Miller. Did you see any direct correlations between what you handed over and the charges that he now faces? Because as I mentioned before, those federal charges came up at the end of the documentary too.
Yes, and absolutely. I felt like the factual allegations in the indictment actually didn't track everything I gave them, but everything that was in the indictment was supported by something that come from my office.
By the way, do you know what he's been up to in the months since he was federally charged, now that this documentary is coming up? Do you have any knowledge about his whereabouts, his activities? Because it's our understanding that the Solid Rock Church building was sold. I'm not sure if he's leading another service. Do you know anything about what he's up to?
Yeah, from what I understand, and you know, people report things to me all the time from the community. He had developed another church, a very small church, and like a little strip mall type of thing. And he renamed it, and we're not going to give him a plug on that, but he has a really small church that he's been having services at, him and Susie, you know, his new wife. They've been doing that together. They still are seen around in the local community in Myrtle Beach and Surfside Beach area. So it's just been going along with his life, you know, but of course the conditions of his bond is he has an ankle monitor, so he can't leave the state of South Carolina. And he also, you know, had to surrender his passport, so his travels are shut down. But he's just, you know, it's kind of just blows the mind how, I mean, a normal person would go into hiding or move somewhere and not stay in the same town where all of this stuff, you know, occurred. But not him. He sticks around. But now that the documentary is out, I'm curious to see what's going to happen at that point. Because this, I mean, it's one thing to have the whole local community on you and the local news and some, you know, folks on the internet and stuff. But now when you put it in front of 90 million plus subscribers of Netflix, that's got a whole new spin on it.
What do you hope comes from this documentary?
Number one for me is for people to learn what coercive control abuse looks like. Whenever I offer, you know, a definition of it, I always feel like it just kind of lands flat, or people go, that sounds horrible. Well, when you watch the documentary, I'm hoping that people walk away, and I've gotten this feedback, but people are walking away going, dang gum, you know, that is horrific. And I'm like, yeah, but what you don't understand is this was condensed into 3, you know, 45 minute episodes. When Mica underwent the same type of relentless behavior for years, her entire 20s and all the way up, you know, till she was married to him and so forth. So specifically, of course, I want the law passed in the state of South Carolina. And at this point, I'm hoping with this kind of coverage that, my goodness, maybe we'll get a law in every state in the United States that criminalizes this behavior as it should be.
What kind of gap in the law is there, just to be clear? What gap is missing?
Well, so for the biggest thing is whenever you're married, and when you're married and the property that you own, even if it's like, oh, the husband always drives this car, the wife always drives that car, and they can tend to look at it as my car and their car. But when you're married in the state of South Carolina, it's considered marital property. So if you want to damage your own property, is what the law looks at. You know, if you want to put razor blades in your tires and you want to, you know, slash up seats and drop dumbbells and key your car, you're welcome to damage your car you want to. So it's not recognized that you take it outside of, it's not its marital property. It is a form of harassment and stalking and, you know, those types of things. And the law is not, it needs to catch up in South Carolina. It's still archaic that, you know, violence, it leaves marks. Coercive control doesn't leave marks on the body. It leaves an indelible scar, lifetime traumatic scar on the brain, on the psyche, and on the self-confidence of a person that's a victim to it.
Before we wrap things up, I just want to go back to something. The way the documentary starts is, I mean, it talks about the death of Mica. When you go back and you think about your last conversations with her, the last time you saw her, and then you hear the news about what happened to her. What do you look back on? Do you say, I saw something like this coming, it came out of nowhere? Were you shocked? I'm sure just watching that is really difficult for you, but I'm just curious, when you go back to that moment in time, what was your feeling?
Yeah, so whenever I found out about it, of course, I 100% did not believe it. I was shocked and just it wouldn't register for me because when Mica was in my office, and I remember I've been a divorce attorney for over 20 years. I've seen all kinds of things, and people in different places. And I can usually tell if a client comes in and they're contemplating leaving or they really feel like they want to, but they're really not all the way in it because they're still uncertain because most people want to continue to try to save their marriage. But Mica had reached that final place, and it was very obvious to me that she was confident in the decision. It was exactly what she wanted. She had already removed herself from him. She wasn't living with him. She was in another place. She had gotten a car that was, he had nothing to do with, that he couldn't interfere with. She also had gotten another job, so he wasn't manipulating, controlling her pay as working in the church like he liked to do all the time. So she was really gaining her self-confidence back. And standing in my conference room, I'll never forget, as long as I lived, her being so excited about her own future because she had already found, her longtime calling from the Lord, as she put it, was to go into mission work. And she was so happy to go and try to build a school in Africa. And so for someone to appear healthy and to appear emotionally stable to me outside of sadness that's commonly associated with the ending of a marriage, I just didn't see her as someone that would have happened to, that she would have even contemplated. That was just surprising to me. And plus, she was making plans, and it just doesn't make sense. Still doesn't make sense to me to this day. I know that we don't have her anymore, but I still just can't believe that she would have done that to herself.
Regina Ward, thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I always want to say, I just appreciate your show so much. I feel like that you and your staff, when y'all get together, y'all really get the story right. And I'm very appreciative of that, and keep doing the great job that you're doing.
Thank you for saying that. We definitely try. This is a big update. This is a big event in Mica's story, and we wanted to definitely have you on to talk about it. So thank you so much, Regina.
Thank you. You have a great day. I appreciate it.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you next time, everybody.